Vietnam-Czech Prime Ministers hold talks in Hanoi. And later on, solutions to revive international tourist market for Vietnam in 2023. Hello there, you're tuning into BizLine, our weekly economic journal on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng, and as usual, we now take a look at news making headlines in Vietnam's economic scene this week.
Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh held talks with his Czech counterpart Petr Fiala in Hanoi on April 21st. Appreciating the significance of the Czech Prime Minister's visit to Vietnam, the Prime Minister affirmed Vietnam's consistent policy of promoting relations with traditional friends, with the Czech Republic as a priority partner. In terms of economy and trade, the leaders welcomed the rapid growth of bilateral trade turnover in recent years to reach $848 million in 2022. They agreed to set a target of hitting the $1 billion mark in the next 1 to 2 years by continuing to fully and effectively implement the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement and improve the effectiveness of the Joint Committee Mechanism on Economic Cooperation. They will encourage Czech enterprises to promote investment in Vietnam, especially in the fields of Czech strength such as automobile manufacturing, digital transformation, renewable energy, the environment, and infrastructure. After the talks, the two leaders witnessed the signing of cooperation documents in the field of mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, investment and education.
Vietnam's 8% growth in 2022 was a bright spot of the region and the world, said Daniel Lee, head of the World Economic Studies Division in the International Monetary Fund, IMF's research department, which produces the World Economic Outlook. WEO. Although the IMF expected a slowdown in Vietnam's growth, the projected rate is still high, at 5.8% in 2023 and 6.9% in 2024. Inflation in Vietnam is relatively low, at over 3% in 2022. It is coming up, partly because of the dynamic economy, and is expected to be back to the world inflation target, at around 4.3% in 2023. For Vietnam to continue to grow strongly in the remaining quarters of this year and the next 5 years, Lee recommended that the country's monetary policy continue to focus on bringing down inflation as it happens, and fiscal policy continue giving the targeted support to the vulnerable households.
According to data from the General Department of Customs, import and export in March regained its growth momentum, with the total value reaching $58.03 billion, a 17.7% increase compared to February. Rice exports reached a record high with 962,000 tons, an 80% increase, and iron and steel exports witnessed impressive growth, with more than $274 million of total value. To support businesses and remove bottlenecks in customs clearance, the General Department of Customs has proposed a number of solutions, including reducing customs clearance time and reducing shipments by 10% in Red Channel inspection shipments and 20% in Gold Channel shipments. In the coming months, the department will focus on utilizing digital platforms for procedures between customs authorities and enterprises.
Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh signed an official dispatch on April 18, demanding relevant ministries and agencies speed up the Long Ton International Airport project. The Prime Minister requested investors of sub-projects, the Transport Ministry, and related agencies to review their assigned tasks, identify causes as well as responsibilities of each poor-performing individual and collective, and send reports to the Transport Ministry for submission to Deputy Prime Minister Tran Hong Ha by April 23. In the dispatch, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh also gave out concrete tasks to related ministries and agencies. Starting in 2021, the Long Ton International Airport project will cover more than 5,000 hectares across 6 communes in the Long Ton district of Dong Nai province. It has a total investment of $14.3 billion and is divided into 3 phases.
Those are some highlights in Vietnam's economic scene. Up next, we will look into solutions deployed by the Vietnam's tourism industry to revive the international tourist market in 2023. In March 2022, Vietnam officially reopened to tourism after a long period of hibernation due to the COVID-19 pandemic, becoming the first country in Southeast Asia to do so. Over a year later, the country's tourism sector has achieved certain results, including recording 103 million domestic tourists. However, the number of international visitors has only reached about 3.7 million, or about 70% of the 5 million target. This year, the sector remains determined to receive 8 million international arrivals. Since the beginning of this year, international border gates have welcomed many foreign tourist groups. With positive signs of recovery witnessed in the first few months, Vietnam tourism industry is making efforts to revive the international tourist market through a number of solutions. So what are these solutions and how will they help Vietnam achieve its goal of attracting more international tourists this year? We now connect with Mr. Trần Trọng Kiên, Chairman of the National Tourism Advisory Board, to discuss this in this week's BizLine. Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
In the first quarter of this year, Vietnam welcomed nearly 2.7 million international visitors, or almost 30 times more than the same period last year. Across the country, popular tourist destinations have been getting more crowded with foreign tourists. Are these positive signals for Vietnam's tourism industry this year?
It's a very positive signal, I think. We have a very good third quarter. We saw the confidence in the market. We saw that Vietnam attracting the right market and market segments. We also see that the overall experience of the customers have been very positive. I think this is a very good sign. And we also see that the impact of opening of China have not been that negative, because we worry that there might be a widespread COVID or other issue, but it seems like we are tackling it very, very well. So yeah, from the industry point of view, we are very happy. Vietnam have done quite well in terms of diversifying our markets to compare to pre-COVID. We are attracting a lot more customers, and especially the Southeast Asian countries. We have also a new market in India opening up, and it is a fantastic market because I think it have high growth potential, and it's very, very attractive to the Vietnamese market with 300 million middle class families. I think India was one of the biggest, probably successful new market for Vietnam. The second opportunity, I believe, would be the Middle Eastern market. I think that requires a bit more time to grow, but I think that would be a very, very good potentials. And we don't forget that there were a few other countries, although smaller, but also very have an interest in Vietnam, such as Sri Lanka, with almost 23 million people. Recent income, though, given the current economic challenges, they will still have a good, strong middle class base that travel. So I think, as I say, the focus will be able to recover the strategic market and grow it at the same time to look at for new market elements.
The hotel market is also gradually recovering after a difficult period of being negatively affected by the pandemic. For example, according to real estate service firm Savills, since last year's fourth quarter, 3-star hotels and above in Hanoi have seen a marked improvement in occupancy rates. What do you think about the impact of the recovery of international tourism on Vietnam's hotel market?
I think hotel markets are recovering well, but it's very different from one destination to another. And you are right about these city hotels having a very high occupancy. So the truth is that the hotel industry was still suffering a lot from the pandemic. So yeah, it's challenging. And in fact, a lot of people see that now is even more challenging than over COVID time to be able to resume operations. So the challenge is the demand, challenge is the human resources and resources to reopen, and challenge is the working with the partners, especially the banks, to restructure their loans so that they can actually operate sustainably. And as a result, I believe that still almost 20-25% of the hotels are not open. And then we also see that the performance overall would still be relatively bad in 2022. three, except for a couple of maybe 2-3 cities or destinations in Vietnam.
Retaining key human resources, taking time to maintain infrastructure, and improving professional skills are some of the measures this hotel has taken to avoid difficulties in resuming operations since Vietnam reopened to tourism. Centrally located in Hanoi's Old Quarter, since the end of last year, the hotel has maintained a 70 to 80% occupancy rate, with most guests being foreign visitors.
3 tháng đầu năm thì hoạt động kinh doanh rất là tốt. Kỳ vọng của chúng tôi thì chúng tôi vẫn luôn kỳ vọng là khách quốc tế sẽ tăng lên đạt khoảng 90% như trước đây, và tỷ trọng chiếm dụng phòng của cả khách sạn cả năm sẽ đạt được 85%. Nếu như mà cứ đạt tăng trưởng từ như hồi tháng 1 đến tháng 3 thì sẽ rất là có khả năng.
For high-end hotels, the gradual return of visitors has brought optimistic signs of recovery. Even though the hotel has only reached 60% of its pre-pandemic levels, it's still very optimistic about this year's business results.
We have a lot of regional travelers from Indochina, from Singapore, Korea, Japan, and gradually we get more extended regional travelers. We're just happy to connect with people and have you all back, and we're looking forward to have you here. Normally summer is low season. We're entering in this low season, but we see that towards the end of the year we're going to have full books and we're going to be on a pre-COVID level again. For the overall year, we see that we're going to end about 75% of the 2019 business volume.
According to a report by real estate consulting company Savills, in the first quarter of this year, the occupancy rate at hotels in Hanoi reached 58%, an increase of 9% compared to the fourth quarter of 2022 and 35% compared to the same period last year. Average rent and average room revenue both increased, demonstrating increased demand.
The 4 and 5 star market in Hanoi particularly has recovered quite well. Quarter one figures are a lot more positive, and this is being driven by the new influx of international tourists. This was only going to increase and improve as more and more international travel, and we're hoping this is going to continue to improve going forward for the rest of the year.
As the country has reopened and is trying to attract more international visitors, another issue raised was the shortage of laborers in the tourism sector. This is due to the fact that during pandemic restrictions, more than half of tourism employees were forced to quit or switch to other fields. How has this affected the recovery of the tourism industry?
It affects pretty badly. I think we probably lost about a million, our estimations, of jobs during COVID. We probably got back around 250,000 over the last probably 6 months, and we probably need another 500,000 over the next 12 months. So we do have a bit of challenge, but I personally be positive about that. They would coming back, or maybe we'll be able to train and recruit, and that one is probably the strength of the industry, that we still able overall to be able to pay higher than some other industry. Ultimately, we need to train, because a lot of them will be the new workers, so the entry level. So the training would be one of the key part, and that needs a few folds. We need the government to have a clear, good consumer policies to train. We need to have the industry to be able to work together to train and promote the people, and the third party to make sure that the industry will continue to be very productive, meaning that the productivity level of the industry would continue to be improving and be able to continue creating a decent kind of income.
Now, after such heavy impacts, what measures should be taken to lure potential workers to the tourism sector again, especially high-quality, skilled human resources?
Furthermore, we probably should make it easier for operators to hire people and to bring people into the country, because I think that ultimately we do need a lot more general manager. We need a lot more skilled workers in the industry, and at the moment it's still quite challenging to bring in quality managers into the country. I think that's something government could easily do to make it simpler. I think the process now is pretty long, and it takes a lot of drain a lot of energy and a lot of people do not want to go through that process as well. So to make it easier to bring in resources. But I think more fundamentally, to among the industries and among ourselves, we should be able to train and promote a lot more of these quality workers into managers.
This was a job exchange held for the first time in Ho Chi Minh City earlier this month to connect people with more than 1,000 jobs and help tourism businesses find the workers they need in time for peak season. However, this number still accounts for a small proportion compared to the number of employees that enterprises are lacking.
Bạn tham dự là các bạn sinh viên, thành ra thường tôi thấy là nghĩ là khó tuyển các nhân sự mà thật sự mà các công ty đang cần.
Enterprises currently only recruit 20% of their needs, mostly graduates. Tourism enterprises are working with universities in Ho Chi Minh City and provinces in the north and central regions and taking part in direct training at schools to develop high-quality human resources.
Lực lượng sinh viên chiếm tỷ lệ cao nhất so với các năm trước, bởi vì chúng tôi đang mong muốn là sẽ đào tạo được tận gốc. Số lượng sinh viên tiếp cận qua công ty chúng tôi đã xấp xỉ gần 100 sinh viên, 60% từ các ngành du lịch và sau đó là đến từ các cái trường đào tạo về marketing, địa lý du lịch.
According to the Ho Chi Minh City Department of Tourism, the tourism industry is currently facing a shortage of human resources, especially in terms of high-quality human resources. The Department of Tourism is also working with relevant units to foster and train human resources.
Chúng tôi đã có những cái lớp bồi dưỡng về mặt chuyên đề dành cho hướng dẫn viên, cho cán bộ quản lý, hay là hỗ trợ cho các doanh nghiệp về việc đào tạo tiếng hiếm dành cho đội ngũ hướng dẫn viên. Và sắp tới chúng tôi có cuộc thi nghiệp vụ buồng phòng dành cho đối tượng là nhân viên buồng phòng.
According to the Department of Tourism, low salaries are another reason why the industry is lacking in human resources. As such, businesses need to consider providing employees with more reasonable salaries to attract candidates.
Last year, despite being among the first countries in the world to reopen for tourism, Vietnam was left behind by some of its neighbors in the region in terms of international tourist arrivals such as Thailand, Indonesia and Singapore, who all met or even exceeded their targets. Did the openness of each country's visa policies play a key role in this situation?
We didn't achieve our goal, and ultimately this is something obviously the industry and the ministry are not very happy about it. But to be fair, I think at first our goal was way too high, right? So we didn't actually set it in the sort of careful planning. On the other hand, Singapore and Thailand set their goals relatively low, and that also have advantage. It means recovering quickly also have issues. I think the advantage here was that we were giving us a bit of time to bring the quality back to the level where we would want to, and repositioning ourselves a bit higher. Well, I think in Vietnam we can really position ourselves at a very safe and very interesting culturally, historically, and nature, but it's very friendly to families, to couple looking for relaxations, explorations, healthy activities, wonderful food, right? So I think that was not a bad thing at all. But the key thing is now we understand that there were some frictions. That's why we didn't achieve higher growth. And ultimately the friction were from how openly we are to tourists. I mean, are we really welcoming them? And are we going to tell the story of Vietnam well to the world at the positioning where we are? And are we really able to provide this kind of amazing experience with a sustainable to the people? So I think this is the question we should be asking, and the other friction we need to deal with.
Recently, the government proposed that the National Assembly relax the visa policies for foreigners coming to Vietnam. If approved, the proposal is said to be a golden opportunity to attract international tourists and increase Vietnam's competitiveness in the region. So what is your opinion on this?
Oh, that would be amazing. And I think I must congratulate the Prime Minister and the government for making that bold initiative to enhance the competitive advantage of Vietnam overall and to be able to truly realize the vision of making tourism to be a spread economy and to be contributing directly, indirectly around 18% to the economy. The Tourism Advisory Board have done a research several years ago, and there was a lot of detail about research. But one point is very important to learn that we actually learned that for every single dollar's reductions on visas, we brought in $10 more of tourist income, right? So we believe that it makes it easier, it's cheaper for tourists to go to Vietnam. I think that could be one good driver for growth. So my only comment is the main thing is to do it as quickly as possible, to make sure it's as easy as possible, and that would be the main message. If we can do that by May, we still have half of the year to grow. But if we have to wait until July and September, then we lose entire years. So when the law is being passed, the execution and the implementation, the communication of the new visa policy should be happening as soon as possible.
Ekaterina and her husband Nikolai are tourists from Russia. This is Ekaterina's fifth visit to Vietnam, but this is the first time for Nikolai. In the near future, the couple plans to return to Vietnam to explore new destinations. So, they are very happy to hear that Vietnam would extend visa-free stay to 30 days. E-visa holders might be able to stay in Vietnam for up to 90 days.
Currently, e-visa holders are only able to stay in Vietnam for 30 days, so I had to go to Thailand to re-enter Vietnam with a new visa and a new length of stay. It would be great to get a 3-month visa so that I can be able to travel here comfortably.
In the Southeast Asia region, I have been to Thailand, but I find Vietnam more unique. I have traveled to Mộc Châu and Hanoi. I want to go to Ha Long Bay and Nha Trang. In the future, we want to make a trip across Vietnam for a year.
Currently, Vietnam waives visas for citizens from 13 countries with a temporary stay of 15 days from the date of entry, including citizens from Russia, Japan, France, Germany, the UK, and South Korea. To attract more international tourists and increase the competitiveness of the tourism sector, the Vietnamese government proposed to extend visa-free stay to 30 days, and to increase the time limit for granting temporary residence certificates at the border gate for people entering the country under unilateral visa exemption to 45 days.
I think it'd be a really good idea because we took out the 16-day one and we're going back after 16 days because we would have had to have paid for the other one. So to extend it by 45 days would be a really good idea.
Nowadays, after the pandemic, the flights are crazy expensive. That's a very big issue for an expat and a foreigner in general. I would say that, of course, people would stay longer in Vietnam.
According to the Vietnam National Administration of Tourism, if the proposed visa policy is put into practice, Vietnam will receive an influx of international visitors even during the peak season. The goal of welcoming 8 million international tourists in 2023 is feasible.
The fact that the country reopened early but achieved results that were below expectations were also raised by Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính at the National Teleconference on Tourism held earlier in March. What are the reasons for this, and what key solution does Vietnam need to focus on in order to achieve its goal this year?
Ultimately, the word friction, and we need to remove the friction if we are to achieve the goal. And I think visas obviously one of the biggest thing, and the sooner we can deal with the visas, in short, we can actually get people on the visa waiver to be staying 45 days instead of 15 days. If we can open more countries with visa waiver policies, such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the rest of European countries, if we are able to get online visa easier for people to be, instead of 1 month to 3 months, if we are able to allow people to get a longer stay visa for those who invest in the countries. The second part, I think, at the moment is to probably make it more competitive to get to the country. I think the air capacity is the issues, and that's something we need to be aware of it well. And certainly, you don't encourage airlines to reduce the cost, the price below their cost, but we encourage airlines to compete healthily so that they actually have more capacity, right? A lot of countries, what they do is they actually provide incentive to airlines to fly a certain part of the country, either reduce fees or marketing fees or anything they could do as well. And that's something Vietnam should be doing to attract people to area where we want, customer want to. There. And the third part is ultimately, I think we should be telling the story better. And it's not that difficult to tell those stories using the digital marketing, the platform we have helped to build. Vietnam.travel could be used a lot more, targeted to a lot more different segments. And then the fourth thing is ultimately we have to make sure that the overall operations, the sustainability of the work is fantastic. I think what Vietnam have not could do a lot more is to make sure that the main destinations are very, very clean. The people are don't overcharge tourists. And a lot of that local governments can actually involve. And because at the end of the day, a good customer will come back and tell to 3 or 4 of their best friend and family. But the customer who have a bad experience will tell to 10, and not people will come as well. So it's I personally think that it is one of the basically 4 things we could do to achieve our 2023 goal and indeed and beyond.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
According to the Vietnam National Administration of Tourism, since the beginning of the year, the flow of international arrivals to Vietnam has been on an upward trend, with nearly 1 million coming to the country each month. Also, during the first quarter, a series of events and activities to promote Vietnam's tourism were held both domestically and internationally. With such promising signs in the first months of the year and the determination of the tourism sector, Vietnam's target of receiving 8 million international tourists in 2023 could be within reach. And on that note, we wrap up this edition of BizLine. Stay with us for more content or if you're on the go. Feel free to download our app VTVgo from App Store or Google Play, or subscribe to our YouTube channel VTV4Go. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.